You are listening to part 53 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan, and welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Thank you, Gemini. We talked a lot about blood pressure in our previous shows, and we kind of, last week, we're talking about some wonderful herbs that have really great ability to help lower blood pressure. Motherwort, passion flower, hawthorn, and that I don't use them all mixed together. I use, one of them or one other of them or one other of them. And I didn't get a chance to ask you if you have experimented with any of those three herbs.
Motherwort I have, yes. I grow that and love working with it.
Have you had occasion to see anybody use it to help reduce their blood pressure?
Yes, just recently, my mother used it, and it made a huge difference in how she felt immediately, like within 30 minutes or so, and then she started taking it more regularly, and she could tell without a medical opinion that her blood pressure felt more even to her, is how she described it.
That's a wonderful way to describe it. There's something about antihypertensive drugs that make us, in a way, feel even worse than we did when we have high blood pressure, although it's certainly called the silent killer and there aren't any symptoms. Nonetheless, many people that I talk to do have an inner sense of when their blood pressure is high. And that motherwort doesn't just lower the blood pressure, but it's like it lowers all of the stress in your body.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. I take it myself occasionally, and I love how it makes me feel.
Yes, if I'm faced, with some really daunting challenge, all right, and I find myself in my breathing getting a little bit shallow, for me, when I notice that my breathing's shallow, I say, just go take some motherwort.
Yes, and I also like passion flower, too.
Tell us about how you use that.
I use that at night. I like to use the fresh leaves in a cup of tea with catnip and chamomile, and it just makes for a more relaxing sleep. I don't have blood pressure issues. I just like how I feel with it.
I also really love there's almost like I'm not quite sure how to describe passion flower. I'll give you a very personal image. It's like hugging that old gray stuffed elephant I had when I was 3.
Yes. It's a perfect evening repose, and I can relate to that.
Soft and warm and huggable. And you feel huggable when you're taking passion flower.
Yes. And after you mentioned that the flowers make a really potent tincture, because I was tincturing just the leaves, because usually I'd let the flowers go. They were so pretty. I started tincturing those, so I'm looking forward to that tincture.
Oh, that's going to be very exciting. I hope that you share with us in what way that could be different. Well, this month we are continuing looking at the drugs that are most commonly prescribed. And, of course, after antibiotics, which we did the month before last, and then antihypertensive drugs, which we did last month, the biggies are statin drugs, anti-cholesterol drugs. So let's take a look at what's going on with statins. Are they safe? Are they effective? And actually, I think we need to start by kind of getting straight, shall I say, or some information about cholesterol. Because I think that if I were to ask just about anybody, cholesterol good or bad, they would say cholesterol's bad. And they would say that foods that are rich in cholesterol would be bad foods like red meat or full-fat milk or, most people know that eggs have been exonerated. But we still think very strongly that cholesterol and fat in general just can't be good for our heart. And especially if our cholesterol is measured and it's found to be high, then it's as though this anti-cholesterol sentiment, feeling, comes to us very, very strongly. And, of course, a very large part of that is because that's how doctors are taught, and so that's what your doctor is going to say to you. But at least one doctor, and in fact many other doctors that I know of, but the one doctor that I'm going to be quoting is Dr. Mercola, agrees with the information that I present in my online course, Have a Healthy Heart, The Wise Woman Way. And my heart health course is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 deals primarily with blood pressure and goes into a much greater depth than we did in our time together last month. And Section 3 deals primarily with cholesterol, and we'll go into quite a bit of what I share in Section 3. But again, in the time allotted to us, we can't possibly cover all of it. So you can go to my wisewomanbookshop.com, and you can look for my online courses, or you can go right to the Wise Woman University if you're interested in the material that I'm presenting on ways to lower your blood pressure, keep your blood pressure low, lower your cholesterol, keep your cholesterol low, or maybe we don't need to have low cholesterol. Dr. Mercola says the myth that cholesterol is bad is actually harming your health. For cholesterol is one of the most important molecules in your body. And in my course, I say we must remember that cholesterol is a health-promoting fat and an important lipid for health, not an evil villain. Cholesterol is critical for brain development in infants. It is used to build strong cell walls throughout the body, including the cells and the neural connections in the nervous system and the brain. Cholesterol is a basic building block that controls the production and utilization of a great many hormones, including stress hormones, sex hormones, and the hormonal vitamin D. Cholesterol actually aids in the digestion of all fats in the body. And in fact, we could think of cholesterol as having a dual function, that it is a fat, but it can also function as a hormone in the body. Since the cholesterol hypothesis is false, says Dr. Mercola, this means that the recommended therapies, low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, and cholesterol-lowering medications are doing you more harm than good. Statin treatment is harmful, costly, and has transformed millions of people into patients whose health has been adversely impacted by the drug. Dr. Frank Lipman says the medical profession is obsessed with lowering your cholesterol because of misguided theories about cholesterol and heart disease. Research shows that 3/4 of people having a first heart attack have normal cholesterol levels. And when data from the well-known Framingham Heart Health Study was looked at in detail, it showed that in most age groups, high cholesterol was not associated with more heart disease, more heart attacks, or more death. In fact, the older you got, the more lethal lower cholesterol became. So that for old people, death became more common as cholesterol lowered. Statins are currently being prescribed based on an incorrect hypothesis. If they were harmless, it would not be so bad. But statins are not harmless. And we're going to be talking next week about the harm that statins cause and how it is that so many people have been willing to believe the myth that cholesterol is somehow bad. Dr. Mercola again. Today's mainstream thinking on cholesterol is largely based on an influential but flawed study done more than 50 years ago. which concluded that men who ate a lot of meat and full-fat dairy had high levels of cholesterol and heart disease. This interpretation took root and gave rise to the prevailing wisdom: lay off saturated fat and your cholesterol level and heart disease will drop. So while we're talking about the cholesterol myth, perhaps we also need to talk about the vegan and the vegetarian myth, or the mythical belief that if you stop eating meat and or stop consuming all animal products, that you will reduce your risk of heart disease and stroke. Those definitely are myths. This interpretation set off a stampede of low-fat, no-fat foods and launched the multi-billion-dollar cholesterol-lowering drug business. Did it actually reduce the overall risk of heart disease in the United States? No, says Dr. Mercola, it did not. Instead of making people healthier, the low-fat, low-cholesterol diet has created an epidemic of obesity and diabetes, both of which drive up your risk of heart disease and dying from a heart attack. Hardly the result that we were really looking for. So Dr. Mercola wants us to know that flawed cholesterol science has done untold harm, that cholesterol is important for health, that total cholesterol is going to tell you virtually nothing about your risk of heart attack, that you have to look at other risk factors, and that you should be very wary of prostatin studies. Dr. Mercola says there are ways to access your actual need for cholesterol lowering, and one of the things that Dr. Mercola is very interested in is boosting HDL. So, what is HDL? What are we talking about here? We are talking about cholesterol. Cholesterol, this important fat used in brain development, used in the creation and utilization of hormones, including vitamin D, is not something that your body would just trust to the environment to get. So your liver is the major producer of cholesterol. In fact, about 3/4 or 75 to 80% of the cholesterol in any person's blood is made by their liver. The liver produces approximately 1,000 milligrams of cholesterol daily. This is why it is extremely rare for a change in diet by removing full-fat dairy or meat to actually lower cholesterol. In other words, adopting a vegan or a vegetarian diet to lower cholesterol is unlikely to work because your body is a cholesterol factory. Cholesterol is a soft, waxy substance found in your bloodstream, but also in every cell of your body. The membranes around our cells are a double lipid layer, and cholesterol is a lipid. It makes those membranes strong. Hormones are specialized kinds of fats. In fact, all hormones are built around a core of cholesterol. And we're talking testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, adrenaline. Most of the major hormones in the body are built around a core of cholesterol. And we have to have cholesterol in order to make bile acids. And those bile acids digest the fat from our food. Vitamin D, of course, is incredibly important vitamin. Unless you have been truly hiding under a rock for the past 10 years, you have heard probably more than you ever wanted to hear about vitamin D. What many people don't know, however, is that vitamin D is very easily made by the skin, kidney, and liver. So the sunlight strikes the skin, a hormone is made. Yep, you're right. There has to be enough cholesterol in the blood for that hormone to be made. It's then carried to the kidneys, then to the liver. Vitamin D is produced. We have to have cholesterol from dairy and from animals in order to do these critically important functions. Eating a vegan diet makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for our bodies to make vitamin D, which does a lot besides protect against cancer. It also serves as insulation for the nerve cells. Cholesterol is directly important for brain health and is critical in the formation of memory. Low levels of cholesterol have been definitely linked to memory loss and have a weaker link to Alzheimer's disease. Low levels of cholesterol have been linked to depression, stroke, violent behavior, and suicide. One of the things that we've talked about is that scientific tradition, medicine, measures, and they want us to measure up. And one of the things that happens when we're being measured and asked to measure up is that we become perhaps more infatuated with the numbers than we do with actual health. I was present at a conversation between a cardiologist and a friend of mine, in which the cardiologist said, well, you're responding very well to the statin that you're taking, and we have achieved our goal of bringing your cholesterol level down to this very healthy number. And so now I would like to double the dose of your statin to bring your cholesterol down even more. We're no longer pursuing health. We're now pursuing numbers. Let's see if we can get that number down. And when I challenged that cardiologist, the cardiologist told me, and I truly believe that the cardiologist believed that the lower the cholesterol, the less the risk of heart attack. In fact, that's quite the opposite of the truth. When we're looking at cholesterol, the total amount of cholesterol is an interesting number, but there are other numbers that we can get, and they're going to give us more information. Cholesterol is a fat, but blood is water. If you've ever made a salad dressing, you know that fat and water don't mix. You may take that salad dressing and shake, unless there's some emulsifier in there. As soon as you set it down, it's going to separate back out into vinegar and oil again. So what the body does is it combines cholesterol with special proteins that are called lipoproteins, in other words, fatty proteins. And so we break cholesterol into two different sizes, two different groups. High density lipoproteins and low density lipoproteins. What we've been told is that high density lipoproteins are safe and that low density lipoproteins are dangerous. Makes it pretty easy to remember. Raise the high, lower the low. More high-density lipoproteins, less low-density lipoproteins. But it turns out that there's yet another division that we can make, and that is low-density lipoproteins come in two sizes, large and small. And large, low-density lipoprotein is no more dangerous than high-density lipoprotein. What's dangerous is the small, dense lipoproteins because they can squeeze through the lining of the arteries, and if they oxidize, they are going to cause damage and inflammation. So I think that we're starting to get an idea that cholesterol is far from being bad. In fact, that it's incredibly important, but that cholesterol, in order to be utilized in the body, has to be worked upon by special proteins, lipoproteins. And those lipoproteins can wind up being high density or low density. The high density ones are fine. The low density ones can be a problem if they are very small. At this point, if your doctor is talking to you about cholesterol, they may be talking about high density and low density, but they're not talking about the actual size. The National Lipid Association has been working for several years to shift the focus toward low-density lipoprotein particle number. Instead of looking at total cholesterol and LD cholesterol, because they find that the size of those particles, whether they're large or small, is a much better indicator. You can have blood teeming with large particle LDL, and your doctor is going to tell you that you need a statin. However, the guidelines that have currently been proposed by the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association are quite controversial. And it seems that 15 million more adults, plus a few kids, are now going to be eligible to take statins in an effort to bring down their numbers, regardless of what type of LDL they have and regardless of whether bringing down that number is actually going to improve health. So cholesterol has to be acted on by special proteins in order for it to be made soluble and to be taken through the bloodstream. HDL cholesterol is thought to be incredibly stable and to protect the heart because it actually removes cholesterol from the blood vessels and carries it back to the liver where it can be processed into your right hormones or excreted. Low-density cholesterol is unstable and more easily oxidized. And once it is oxidized, then the blood vessels become irritated and artery-clogging plaque is likely to form. Now, cholesterol has been blamed for plaque formation, but we can see that it's not the cholesterol itself that's causing the plaque formation. It is the oxidation of small, low-density cholesterol particles. And we're going to start to see as we talk this month about where those are actually coming from and how we can change it. In fact, LDL cholesterol is the most common type of cholesterol. And while lowering it is a goal of statins, there are lots and lots of foods that are just as good at lowering it. But to my mind, a more important goal is to reduce the oxidation of low-density lipoproteins. And again, there are a lot of plants that are very happy to help us with that. Now, there is another kind of cholesterol, and that is called triglycerides. And glycerin means a sugary thing, and triglycerides would seem to me to be that there is some three thing that's somewhat sugary, and yet this is an active part of the lipid system of our body. The reason that they are named like a sugar is because they act like a sugar. The sugars in our body store energy for later use, and that's exactly what triglycerides do. After you eat, if there are unused calories, and those unused calories are converted into triglycerides, which then go to the fat cell of the body to await release as needed. They have to be acted on by special hormones in order to get released. I was astonished to discover that sumo wrestlers, and most of us know that sumo wrestlers have quite a bit of body fat, eat the same basic diet that other Japanese people do. It's not like they're eating some, special foods. But what really distinguishes them is their eating pattern. They do eat more than a normal Japanese person, but right after they eat, they lay down. And so what they eat gets stored as fat. Refined carbohydrates are especially noted for raising triglyceride levels, and high triglyceride levels are strongly associated with heart attacks. Fish oil supplements are recommended by many people for lowering triglycerides, but again, that's rather, taking care of something after the damage has been done. The triglycerides can be damaging to us even while they are in our body. So we want to bring down refined carbohydrates, white flour, white sugar, pasta, pizza, pastry, pretzels, cakes, cookies, bread, bagel, donuts. These are especially noted for raising triglyceride levels. As we said, fish oil, don't have to take a pill. Simply eat more fatty fish. You don't get the side effects that you do from taking any kind of drug, and many of the drugs thin the blood too much, and so do fish oil pills. All right. Suppose we go to the doctor. The doctor is going to say, we need a blood test called lipid profile. And if you want to know what your total cholesterol levels are, anything else going on, that's what we need. And they're going to ask you to fast before you take that test. But recent studies have found that it's probably not that important. So if your doctor asks you to fast and something happens and you don't actually do it, don't fess up. Your test should still be fine. Cholesterol numbers can be very intimidating. Your doctor is going to want your numbers to conform to those standards, and you need to decide if it's truly in the interest of your health to conform to those standards. Remember, most of the people who have a heart attack have normal cholesterol. In fact, what seems to be more predictive of that heart attack is inflammatory factors. How much inflammation is there in the blood? That is going to be more likely to cause a rupture or release of that plaque that we were talking about. It is envisioned that partially hydrogenated fats, possibly triglycerides, and possibly low-density lipoproteins, especially the small ones, actually pierce the blood vessels. Remember before I said that we think that the low-density lipoproteins, when they're very small, can get through the blood vessel. But the fact of the matter is they don't, get through an exit or an on-ramp. They pierce the blood vessel, and they cause damage when they do that. And cholesterol comes along and literally covers up that damage. Unfortunately, that makes a little bump. It's as though you were trying to repair damage to your carpet by gluing another piece of carpet on top of your carpet. There would be a little place there where dirt or your toe or things would catch, and that's what starts happening in the blood vessels, that things catch there, and that builds up into a plaque. Is it really cholesterol's fault? Well, this is a quote that I think says a lot. Cholesterol is a firefighter. It is always present and in great numbers. And when there is a fire, it is present in great numbers. But it is not the cause of the fire. So this doctor is saying that a heart attack or a stroke is a fire, and that cholesterol is going to be attracted to that fire, but it is not the cause of the fire any more then a firefighter is the cause of the fire, even though you always find them around fires. In both instances, the firefighter and the cholesterol are simply trying to make things better. So, make things better, is that by taking a statin? Absolutely not, and we will find out why next week. Thanks so much for giving me this time with you.
Thank you, Susan. And this concludes part 53 of our series, The 7 Medicines the Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.